Yo guys, what is up? Max here in a Diablo 4 video, and today we're going over my Bash Dust Devil build, or as my chat lovingly named it, the Twister Fister build. This is a build that I kind of came up with as we were leveling. I didn't really have any plans for specific builds to play with Barb. I just know I wanted to use Dust Devils because I thought they look cool. And I came up with a build that I don't know if anyone else has kind of done. If they have, I apologize. But we came up with this as I was leveling and have been like working on it and tweaking it. And it turned out better than I ever could have imagined. Every season, there's like a build that just really resonates with me that I just like can't stop recommending. That's just really, really fun. That is this build. This is by far my favorite build that I played this season. It's incredibly strong. It's incredibly easy to put together, and it's just awesome. As you're probably seeing from the gameplay, we're really fast. We do tons of damage, and it's easy to set up. In this video, we're going to break down everything that you need to know. Hope you enjoy the guide. Let's get right into it. So we're going to start with an overview of the build, and then we'll get into the skill tree and Paragon and everything else that you need to know. So this build is based entirely on the devilish aspect. This reads that after generating 100 Fury, your next direct damage creates 2 Dust Devils that deal a set amount of damage to enemies along their path. Well, while I was leveling, this was my only source of Dust Devils. I was playing a Bash build, and I noticed that Bash was proccing this fairly often. So the idea was, what happens if we just break Fury generation? What if we grab a bunch of Fury generation on our gear? What if we use things like the empowerment aspect, where our shouts are going to be generating Fury per second while active? What if we grab things like Endless Fury, that our basic skills generate 30% more Fury? What if we spec into tons of stuns with Concussion to get almost guaranteed stuns with Bash, and then every time that Bash hits a stun enemy, it generates even more Fury? This build is, we're just generating so much Fury that we're able to basically send out Dust Devils on every single swing of Bash or every other swing. And when we start swinging, you'll notice that we just get to proc a bunch of Dust Devils. When we pop our stuff, we just do lots and lots of Dust Devils, and that's kind of the build. We're really fast. We swing really quickly. Bash Cleave is hitting multiple enemies, but we're not scaling basic attack damage. This is not a Bash damage build. I'm not scaling Bash damage. What we are scaling are our Dust Devils, and that is the damage that's carrying us, and that is the core concept of the build, is generate lots of Fury, scale Dust Devil damage, and have a really fast, quick damage dealing build to level up into the end game. And eventually we'll probably be pushing pits with this, but that is what I'm rocking right now, and it has been so much fun. All right, now let's go over my gear. Once again, I'm only level 80. I'm like a little shy of armor cap right now. My resistances aren't great, but I do have a planner that should have like more min-max things if you're looking for them. But I want to talk about what I'm using and why I'm using it. So to start, Tuskholm of the Joritz is kind of a best in slot here. It's going to give us attack speed, damage while berserking, aggressive resistance, which is DR while berserking. This build is all about keeping up berserking. And with this helmet, while we're berserking, if we gain berserking, we have a chance to become more enraged, granting us increased damage, 2 Fury per second, and cooldown reduction. All fantastic things for this build. Next up, on our chest piece, we're going to be using the aspect of the might. This is going to give us 20% DR anytime we basic attack enemies, which is just up all the time. That's fantastic. We've got max life, Fury per second, and ranks to challenging shout, increased armor, and ranks to concussion. Now, concussion's kind of fantastic for this build because right now I don't need any more ranks than this. When we're using a two-handed weapon, we have a 105% chance to basically stun something when we lucky hit, and Bash has a 50% lucky hit chance. So basically every other attack with Bash, we're going to be stunning things, which is great because once again, when we are stunning things or damaging stunned enemies with Bash, we're going to get extra Fury, which means more Dust Devils per second for our build. So that's all great there. Next up on our gloves, the God tier roll is going to be max life, attack speed, crit chance. This is actually pretty great that I got this going. And then I've got damage while berserking. Couldn't hit a good second temper. And we're going to be using the aspect of the elements to gain a big old damage buff to our Dust Devils when we are on our top rotation. And you can kind of like wait for this to pop up. You don't want to see the moon. You're going to see the sun. And then you can just pop all of your shouts and just go ham on a boss. They will melt. Next up on our pants, I've pretty horrible pants. I don't need any of these things. I don't need life per second. I don't need fire res, and I don't need ranks to Bash. Once again, we're not scaling Bash. I would probably look for like strength max health, and then spirit. Oh no, all res, strength, max health, and all res would kind of be my like best in slot roll on pants. And then you're gonna really try to hit ranks of imposing presence. Imposing presence gives us increased max health, which is just best in slot there. Next up on our boots, we're going to be using max life, movement speed, and then I've got ranks to Warcry for even more damage multiplier with that, and then more movement speed and ranks to concussion. And then for the aspect on the pants, we're going to be using Ghostwalker. We're going to be unstoppable quite a bit on this build from our shouts. Wrath of the Berserker also gives us unstoppable, so tons of extra movement speed for us. And then on the pants, I forgot to mention that we're going to be using aspect of the Hectic, which gives us cooldown whenever we use 5 basic skills. Our attack speed is pretty gross on this build. We're going to be scaling it up a ton. As soon as we get our Moonrise going, we get even more attack speed. So that is just tons of cooldown. You could technically use Yens on this build if you wanted to. I think Hectic is kind of better than it for us right now. So I'm not using Yens. Next up on our weapons, you're going to be looking for strength, max life. Once we get enough crit chance, crit damage is probably going to be the best in slot thing. But right now I've just got percentage damage. Ideally, crit damage is the better thing to go for. Just once again, I don't have great crit chance quite yet. Then we're going to go for damage while berserking, which is going to lead to a multiplier in our Paragon board. And then we want 1 temper that's chance for Dust Devils to cast twice. This is just a big damage increase. We're going to want 1 of these because when we get Dust Devils to proc, obviously if we're proccing extra of them, that is just a huge damage increase in of itself. And then on the mace, we're going to be using the aspects of the Fierce Winds. Your shout skills create 3 Dust Devils that deal damage to enemies along their path, and it gives us the Dust Devils multiplier. Our Dust Devils are 38% bigger and deal 1% increased damage for each 1% of their size increased. So more damage multiplier, and the shouts that pop these actually do like a ton of damage. If you get close to an elite and pop these, they will just like absolutely destroy it. So that is great there. Next up on our sword, we're going to be using strength, max life, crit damage, damage while berserking, and bash to cleave. Now, bash cleave is actually a really important temper for this build. I'm going to show you what happens when we're not using bash cleave. If I'm not using bash cleave, oh, I procced a NATO there, but if I'm not using bash cleave, I'm only damaging this enemy. As you can see, we're basically NATOing every other hit, but only the enemy in the middle is getting hit. As soon as I put on the bash cleave, now I hit 4 enemies with a single basic attack. So bash cleave is really important because it's going to help us stun enemies more. It's going to help us build up more fury and proc more Dust Devils. So even though we're not scaling bash damage, the bash cleave is really, really important for this build. Next up on my sword, I've got strength, max life, damage, Dust Devil damage, and this should be damage while berserking. It's just rolled to damage to close. And then we're going to be using the aspect of the Moonrise. Moonrise is actually really good here because it's going to give us a 20% attack speed increase and 15% movement speed. Those are great. We don't really care as much about the damage multiplier to our basic skills. Obviously, more damage is fantastic, but once again, not something we're super focused on scaling, but you can keep this up in a dungeon basically the whole time, and you will just get so much extra movement speed from it, which is fantastic, and more attack speed. Also, on this blade, we're going to be using Edge Masters. I didn't mention that, but Edge Masters gives us another damage multiplier to our Dust Devils. Lastly, on our sword, I've got Strength, Max Life, and Damage with more Dust Devil damage and more damage while berserking with the Devilish aspect so that we create more Dust Devils whenever we proc enough Fury. On my amulet right now, I've got movement speed, ranks to heavy-handed, and ranks to pit fighter. I got pretty lucky with this, actually. Pit fighter gives me more damage to close and more damage reduction, and heavy-handed gives me more crit damage when I'm using two-handed weapons. So that was actually a pretty disgusting amulet. I would like to get one with ranks to counter offensive. We are going to be fortified like 99% of the time on this build. So this is also a pretty nice damage multiplier, but that amulet is pretty fantastic. Movement speed, crit chance, and attack speed are also all great on your amulet. I haven't gone for a second temper yet on this just because I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to go for. There's so many temper options with this build. But once again, in the planner, I'll have like a fully tempered amulet there for you. Next up on my ring, I've got crit chance, max life, and strength. I think our perfect ring is crit chance, max life, attack speed, and then you're going to want, I missed the temper here, you're going to really want damage while berserking and basic resource generation. The more basic resource generation that we get, obviously, the more Dust Devils we get to proc. And we are generating enough fury that like you're going to want a bunch of attack speed as well so that we can get out more Dust Devils per second and also generate more fury per second. So that's why attack speed is so good on this build. And then for our rings, we're going to be using our shouts, generate primary resource, more resource gen, more NATOs, and Bold Chieftain so that we can reset the cooldowns of our NATOs or our Dust Devils. And on the amulet, we're using Rapid so that we get more basic attack speed so that we can spam out even more NATOs with this build. For our weapon technique, we're going to be using the sword. This allows us to apply bleeding with this build, which is going to be really nice. Now, it's important to note that the Dust Devils do not count as direct damage for this, so the Dust Devils themselves do not proc bleed, but we do cleave in a pretty big AoE. As you can see, I'm just hitting this one enemy, and they're all bleeding, so it's still up quite enough, even though the Dust Devils don't proc it. We do need a source of bleed on the build, and the weapon expertise seems like the best place to put that. For our skill tree, we're going to put 3 points into Bash. Make sure that we grab that Bash generates more Fury, which is really nice. Then we're going to come down, put 3 points into Endless Fury, so that our basic skills generate more Fury when using two-handed weapons. We're going to grab Imposing Presence for more max life, Rallying Cry with more resource generation, super big for us, Challenging Shout, which generates even more fury for us, even more NATOs. We're going to be using War Cry. War Cry is going to give us increased damage multiplier for our NATOs, which is great. We've got Booming Voice for our shout effects to last longer, Guttural Yell to reduce the enemy's damage that they get hit by the shouts, and Raid Leader so we get a little bit of healing. I'll explain the kick thing in a second. Next up, we're using Aggressive Resistance, which gives us damage reduction while berserking. Prolific Fury. While we're berserking, we get more fury generation. That's fantastic. Pit Fighter for increased damage to close. No Mercy to increase crit chance against immobilized, stunned, and slowed enemies. 1 point in Thick Skin. We are getting Fury or Fortitude a ton from Bash. Bash, damaging a stunned enemy with Bash grants you max life as Fortify. So this is going to be giving us lots of Fortify, just basic attacking it really quickly. And then with Counter Offensive, while we have Fortify, we're going to get a damage multiplier. That's great there. We're coming down here. We're not trying to use Wallop. Once again, skills using bludgeoning weapons to increase damage. We're not trying to scale the damage of Bash, so this is not important damage multiplier for us. Concussion is important, and heavy-handed is important. This is going to give us 25% increased crit damage for those NATOs. And then we're going to be using Wrath of the Berserker. Now, Wrath of the Berserker reads that we're going to get Unstoppable, we're going to get Berserking, dealing direct damage with basic skills grants Berserking for 5 seconds, so this is really good for the build. While we're Wrath of the Berserker is active, we get movement speed, more fury generation, and every 50 fury we spend is going to increase our berserking damage bonus by 25% up to 100%. And here's the real kicker. I did not mean that as a pun, but we are going to be using Kick with this build. Now, Kick gives us a guaranteed source of vulnerable, which is great for melting elites, but it also consumes all of the fury that we have. So the kind of idea here is to use Wrath of the Berserker, and then you can kick an enemy again, or well, I technically should have basic attacked in between those. But that's going to give us a damage multiplier, and as you saw right there, all of a sudden, my Dust Devils were proccing for over 1 million damage, where usually with Wrath of the Berserker, they're not. And so that's kind of the big, I almost said kicker again. But Kick is really great for this build because it's going to give us that massive damage multiplier with Wrath of the Berserker, and it's another source of vulnerable, and we're going to have some other benefits of spending Fury, so that's great there. And then lastly, our Keystone Unconstrained must have increased Berserking's maximum duration by 5 seconds and increase its damage bonus to 100%. Which is just ridiculous, a huge multiplier for us, and we're going to be berserking all the time. Now, my Paragon board is absolutely atrocious because I haven't done any planning or messing around with it. I just started putting points in while I was leveling, but I will have a full planner in the description. Just want to show you guys quickly what I'm using. Mainly, we're using Twister for the Dust Devil damage. This is the most important glyph, and we deal increased damage for 4 seconds after creating a Dust Devil, so permanent uptime on that. I went for Carnage while berserking, crits or critical strike increase on my attack speed, more Dust Devils, more damage. We're also going to put Might here for increased damage while using two-handed weapons.
and we get some extra berserking damage while berserking, and more damage reduction from close, which is great. Then we're coming into the Blood Rage board. This is kind of why we're putting so much damage while berserking. This is going to give us a generic damage multiplier, 30%, from our damage while berserking bonuses. Which is all really great. And we're also going to put the martial glyph so that whenever we cast a shout skill, the active cooldowns of our other shout skills are reduced. There's more shout up time. We want our shouts up as much as possible. I got more damage while berserking, more berserking duration. And then I came over to the weapons master board to grab some more damage to elites and some movement speed here. And then we're gonna I'm gonna put territorial here. I haven't like leveled that up quite yet, but that's kind of the deal. Once again, the Paragon board is really shoddy right now. I will have like hopefully a min-maxed version of it in the description. Guys, that is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Genuinely, this build is so much fun. I know it's not the best barb build in the game. I know it's not doing billions of damage. It's not the meta. I don't know if anyone else has done this yet on barb, but I really like this idea. I really like this build. You don't have like spirit or fury issues on bosses. You don't have bad AoE. You don't have like tough weapon tempers. I haven't bricked any weapons yet. It's just easy to put together. It does tons of damage, tons of movement speed. We're tanky, and it just feels really, really, really good to play. I cannot recommend this build enough. So I hope you give it a try, honestly, and I will catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.